Okay, we're going to tie an intruder today, an intruder style tube. And this is one that's pretty new to us. It uses a lot of natural colors instead of the really bright steelhead colors that you usually see. So we're going to start with a 2-inch stainless tube. Just going to insert it onto a liner tube and melt the end. Okay, you'll see you get the little lip there. Okay, let it dry for a second. And we'll go ahead and cut, just leaving at most 1/4 inch out the front of the tube. Okay, so you've got the stainless, then a liner tube. Alright, I'm going to put this on my mandrel and into my vise adapter. And get it in really tight. Don't want to have a spinning tube. And you'll notice that the stainless tube is completely spinning on the liner tube, so we'll just easily fix that. We'll fix that with our thread. And what we'll do is just start our thread right at the joint. We'll make sure to push back all the way, and all you're simply doing is just making a bump of thread, and that will secure the tube. Alright, I'm going to wind the thread all the way to the back. Like I said, this type of intruder fly we're doing, the style isn't really new to ones we've done before, but definitely the color combinations are. Okay. And instead of Lady Amherst's center tail feather, we're going to use Lady Amherst side tail. Now the difference is, well, this is the center tail, and you can see it's got, on one side it's got the usual black and white zebra kind of pattern, but on the other side it's got the kind of the brown tipped end. Okay, and these are nice because you get really long fibers on them, almost 4 inches long, I would say. Alright, so what I'll do is I'm going to take one of those really long sections on the feather. You can see here's where I've hacked away before. Nice, really prime fibers. And I'm going to put about 3 bunches around the back section and just kind of spread them out. Okay, it's one bunch. The second bunch, and the last bunch. When I say bunch, I'm talking about, 6, 7, 8 fibers. And you can see it's going to be kind of a webby, buggy looking fly with fibers going all over the place. Alright, going to put just a little bit of flash, and not a really crazy bright color of flash. This is just plain yellow. Put 5 or 6 strands of that in. Alright. Okay, I'm going to put a rib in at this point. Just a flat silver tinsel. And just like many of our versions of the intruder style, we like to have a thin body, usually of floss, so we're going to go with black floss here. Just 4-strand black floss. And we're going to go up the body halfway with that. Whoops. Okay, about halfway we stop, tie it off. We're going to counter wind our rib. Alright, so we got the tail section, half the body done. We're going to go back in with the Lady Amherst fibers, and we're going to put 3 more clumps of fiber around the tube, just like we did on the tail. And again, it's just a matter of tying them in and then spreading them out after you've tied them in. Now it's important, you don't want to get carried away with the Amherst. If you put too much on, it's just going to all mat together in the water. I do know of a few guys that actually slightly burn their Lady Amherst so it does not stick together. But I find if you just pull it apart like this, and every time you go to cast the fly and whip it in the air, usually the fibers come apart again. Then in the water, of course, they come together. But hey, so there's, you can almost call this like a midsection hackle, I guess. All right, we're gonna put in a hackle of heron now. If I can find my heron. Here we go. Okay, so we've got, this is the natural brown color heron. We want to find a nice long fiber. We're just going to get rid of all of our fluff. You probably noticed when I started tying this fly I had fluff all over the place. That's what this stuff is. It's crazy. It sticks to everything. Okay, so most of the fluff is off that. We're going to now find the tip of this feather. With heron's always fun because you've got such a long fiber. Find the tip and pull back. Alright. Tie in at the base of the tip, if that makes sense. We'll pull everything back. Alright. Gonna have a seal for body here for the front, and you might want to do this with a dubbing loop. I just dub it on old school here. But there's no doubt if you use a dubbing loop, it'll be on there a lot better. And we chose to do a 2-inch tube here. Of course, you can go way smaller than this if you want to. We actually have a few customers that go even bigger. I have a friend that ties a very similar fly on a 4-inch tube, if you can believe it. And I'm still not quite sure how he casts that without scaring everything in sight. Alright, so we're going to stop just before the end of the metal section. Just zoom in here for you. Okay, so we've got the nice seal body. We've got our heron now, and we're going to palmer our heron over the seal section. Now, we have gone over this section with a rib to just strengthen up the feather. But honestly, the heron feather, you can see here when I tie in the base of the feather, it's pretty thick stuff. So I mean, I'm not going to say fish's teeth isn't going to rip it, but it's pretty strong. And we've actually had intruder flies where the heron that's over the seal body does get ripped, and the fly honestly doesn't really change that much in the water. Makes you wonder why we put it in the first place, but it's the way we do it. Alright, I'm going to take another large heron fiber, or feather, pardon me, take away the fuzzies again. So we've got a nice big feather. The same thing, we're going to just pull back the tip. We're going to wrap one heron feather as a collar here. Okay, so essentially you're doing a palmer over the seal and then another extra heron feather as a collar. Just going to wrap it in place. Best part about working with heron is it looks like a disaster until you actually finish wrapping the feather and tie everything back. Then it really starts to look sharp. And you can see I just added more fibers. And pull back and tie over that just a little bit. And you can see it's starting to come together. Now if you pull out the Lady Amherst, you can see it's starting to look like an intruder. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add more of the Lady Amherst side tail feather. Again, 3 clumps. And you want to get the very longest stuff now because you want to try and get the fibers really far over the body. And the reason I showed this, the Lady Amherst side tail, is just for that natural brown color on the top. This is the one time in an intruder we're kind of going for at least, it's definitely not a natural silhouette the fly has, but we want to go for the natural tones and colors. And when you get the brown and the gray and the black, it really adds to the fly. And you know what, I might even go a little heavier here. Might go 4 big clumps. And again, we'll thin it out and kind of space it around the tube a bit better. We do have friends and customers that really are meticulous about spacing out every fiber, so it's completely in and around all over the tube. I don't worry about that so much, because like I say, once you flip it through the air a few times, they separate pretty well. Alright, just going to zoom out so you can see everything here. Okay, so you can see it's starting to get that buggy look, and definitely natural colors going on there. Alright, I'm going to add just a little bit more of that yellow flash, not a whole ton, just a touch, maybe 5 more strands. And I'm going to go long, so they go right to the tail almost. And quite honestly, yellow was the most natural color I had in the shop here. Guess we do too much steelheading, but as far as crystal flash and flashaboo, yellow is a pretty neutral color. Alright, now we're going to go still a natural tone, but not as natural as the browns. We've got mallard flank here, and this is stuff we've dyed gold. It's the color we call it. It's kind of a bright burnt brown color, I guess you could call it, but it's different anyway, and it's still got that natural look, but it's going to add a bit of zip to the front of the fly. Okay, so pick off the fuzzies. Okay, and actually I forgot a step here, so I'm going to hold on to that mallard. One thing we like to do on this fly is we like to add a little bit more heron, and how we do that is I'm going to pick 3 heron feathers that are very long, some of the biggest stuff, and I just want to increase the webbiness of this fly. And how we're going to do that is, instead of wrapping it in like we just did, I'm going to take a heron feather, about 3/4 of it, just so that there's no white at the base, or very little, and I'm actually going to just put it in like a tent wing. I'm going to go once, and do it again. Now you'll notice when we do this, you're going to get a really long feather that goes way past the tail. So this, I think, just increases the bugginess, I guess, of the fly. And put the last one in here. You could add more than 3. Some guys I've seen add just 1 as kind of a tent wing. But as we pull that out, if I zoom out now, you can see you got fibers going from the front right to the back now. So not only have we wound heron, we've also tied it in. Just want to make sure you can make a lot of wraps there really so it's cinched in. Alright, so back to our gold mallard. Okay. I've trimmed the fuzziness off the bottom. We'll go tip first. Pull back the fibers. I'm going to tie it in and wrap. And just like the heron, this mallard looks like a mess until you pull everything back. And I'm going to wrap almost till I'm out of fibers there. You'll notice the stalk, or the stem will get quite thick and pretty much stop you from wrapping. Okay, tie it off. And like I said, you've got an absolute mess here until you pull everything back. You'll notice I'm not using a tapered pin on this one. I'm using an actual vise adapter. The reason is I like to use vise adapters on intruders because you do so much pulling back of fibers. If you use a tapered pin and you're pulling back all the time, you could jab your finger. And it's basically, if you use a vise adapter, you can do them much faster because you're not worrying about your fingers every 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm just going to squish everything down there and then open the fly up again. And you know what, we don't always do this, but I'm going to add one more mallard feather. Okay, same way as we just did it, and pull it back. Okay, pull everything back again. We're gonna make our head. Now, because we used the liner tube on this, we could easily add it just about any style comb we wanted. Quite frankly, my fly boxes right now are so full of tubes that have heavy heads on them. I need a few that are just unweighted except for the stainless tube. Alright, just going to wet the feathers a bit. See what the profile looks like here. At the same time, I'm going to kind of pick out the back end. Just make sure you can see the whole fly here. Alright, we're going to add some jungle cock to this. We like the jungle cock pretty long on this fly, so we'll just measure them up, and at least an inch long. And you can see once you add the jungle cock on there, it kind of just brings everything together. Make sure we get lots of wraps on that. Nothing worse than you make a beautiful fly and the first time you fish it, the jungle cock flies off. Oh. Okay. Some guys like to tie in the jungle cock where it's up at an angle on the fly on intruder style tubes. And by no means am I saying intruder style is this style. This is just a take on the very famous patterns. I like to lay my jungle cock perpendicular though to the tube, so it's right alongside. But everybody's got their own style. Okay, just going to whip finish the head. And always with these tubes where you put, I mean, there's 4 heron feathers on this. A lot of time involved in it. It's a shame to have a head fall apart on the river when you put that much time and, to be honest, price into it with the tying materials. Whoops. Alright, just going to lacquer the head. Actually, no, I'm not going to lacquer the head. I've done that before today. I'm going to melt the lip first. Okay, so you can see before I even melt this, this is my hand, obviously. This is a pretty sizable fly, and you've got a lot of fibers coming with it. You can see the other side. You know, it's a 5-inch fly if you go tip to tail. Okay, we'll just cut the lip, 1/8 of an inch, melt it off. Okay, now we'll, just for the video here, I'll put it back on the mandrel. And as with any tube you've invested time and money on, you want to give it at least 2 or 3 coats of varnish with drying time in between. I'm sure most of you know this, but if you just do coats, 1 coat and then another coat in 2 or 3 minutes and then a 3rd coat in 2 or 3 minutes, you don't get that nice beautiful clear head. So what you want to do is you want to do a coat, let it dry, not obviously on the vise but somewhere else, let it dry for at least an hour, come back and do another coat, and then another hour, and then another coat, and then you get the really beautiful, it's still wet right now, but you'll get a beautiful dry finish on the fly. Okay. That's a more natural looking intruder. I'll just show you one I did this morning for a customer of mine. This was on a much bigger tube. This is on a large diameter 2-inch copper tube, and it's a little bit more densely tied. And you can see, quite honestly, this fly looks like a mess until you go and put it on in the water. Okay. But you can see, just like with the one we just tied, we've got tons of fibers going everywhere, and can't wait to be fished. Alright.